Thank you very much for the opportunity to participate in today's panel. My topic is on climate change, wildfires, and agricultural worker health. Next slide, please. We are all very much aware, especially here in the Western United States, of the increasing frequency and severity of wildfires that are plaguing our state, as well as the entire Western United States. Next slide. This is a map on the right to show where agricultural activities and workers are located, and on the left to show during the year 2018, the number of wildfire events that occurred within the state of California. It's clear from the comparison of these two maps that agricultural workers have a very significant impact due to wildfires. Next slide. This is an example of just workers out in the field during a wildfire event. We wanted to understand what the perceptions and experiences were for agricultural workers and how we could provide guidelines for them. Next slide. So we created basically a study to really look at occupational health and safety within agriculture due to extreme weather, including exposure to wildfire. We also wanted to go through the process of developing safety awareness, best practices for the protection of agricultural workers. This was especially due to the fact that the California Emergency Wildfire Smoke Regulation took effect during July of 2019. So in order to do this, we looked at 3 of the most susceptible agricultural regions in the state of California for basically climate and wildfire smoke. In doing this, we selected Imperial, Central, and Salinas valleys. We looked at focus groups. We could talk to them with the farm workers. We conducted interviews with farm owners, and we'll present here our preliminary findings. Next slide. We found in general, and again, this was in 2018, 2019, prior to a lot of the wildfires that we're now experiencing here in the state of California in 2020, that both farmers and farm workers felt that the frequency of wildfires definitely is increasing. For the farm workers, they expressed the likelihood of continuing to work despite unsafe conditions due to just economic necessity. And there was also, we found a mixed knowledge of what constitutes the appropriate personal protective equipment, whether it be a bandana versus a respirator. There are also some barriers that we found to using respirators among agricultural workers. And some of this may be due to an indifference to the supervisor. Again, this was a perception before the wildfire smoke regulation in California, and also discomfort due to heat. In terms of the farm owners, many of the farmers basically stated that this was really kind of a new issue for them. And so they really had a variety of knowledge as how to even obtain accurate air quality measurements. And this is especially important for this new California regulation. Next slide. So these are just a few comments that I wanted to share with you through interviews and focus groups during the summer of 2018. From a Fresno farm owner, we've never set up protocols for that. You don't see it coming. We don't have the means for measuring air quality. This hasn't happened a lot until the fires. This is new for us. And from the perspective of the farm worker, a worker from Mendota, it's because you sweat while working and that bothers you. You don't want to have anything on your face. Just the mesh that you use to cover your hair itches. Those materials, what they're made from, it's not easy for a farm worker to endure all of that. In addition, they want you to wear your apron in the intense heat, your 2 plastic sleeves, and your plastic chaps. It's a lot. Next slide. So in terms of the experience that we've had in doing these focus groups and interviews, we wanted really, our ultimate goal was to assist employers with meeting the requirements for this new regulation for California. And so the Western Center for Agricultural Health and Safety developed resources both in English and Spanish. These included an employer checklist, just in event that an employer would anticipate their employees may be exposed to wildfire smoke. A checklist would provide action items for the employer to assist in meeting requirements outlined in the state regulation 1541.1 wildfire smoke protection effects. We also created training materials and an accompanying discussion guide to provide to workers and to those who would be involved in training employees in communicating what are the required topics that are needed under the state regulation 5141.1. And also mandatory information to be provided to all agricultural workers. Now, these materials can be found online on our website. And also, next slide, I wanted just to show that these are the training materials that we have that are provided to, we've mailed out thousands of these training materials that talk about the health effects of wildfires, monitoring air quality index, as well as respirators. Next slide is just an enlargement to show some of the symptoms that workers may experience, such as burning eyes, runny nose, difficulty breathing, coughing, fatigue, or even a rapid heartbeat. Next slide. The air quality index that must be followed is whenever the AQI goes above 150, this is then mandatory that the farmer must provide respirators for their workers. Now, this has created some issues, next slide, due to COVID-19, that there really is a scarcity of the proper type of respirators that are referred to as N95. These are masks that must be properly fitted around the mouth and the nose to provide adequate protection from the inhalation of particles that are in the air. Facial hair can be problematic, and these are just training guides to try to help the workers understand what they need to do. Also, we encourage basically administrative practices that should be used if there's issues with a worker, for them to slow down, to talk to a supervisor, to get into an area where there may be filtered air, or to seek medical attention. Next slide. So the dissemination of these materials has been extensive since their formation in late 2018. We've sent out thousands of these materials to farms and to individuals for their use. We are continuing to make new materials and update them, and that they can be available on request. Again, everything that we've done shows training in both English and Spanish. We've also invested in a number of small pilot grants that are being funded to better understand what is the impact of wildfire smoke on the agricultural workers, as well as to try to understand how is the new wildfire regulation in the state of California working. Next slide. And I'd just simply like to acknowledge our study team, in particular, Heather Ryden, the program director for the Western Center for Agricultural Safety, who has really spearheaded a lot of this work using individuals as listed here who are in outreach and in Spanish translation as well as evaluation. And we especially would like to thank the farmers and the farm workers who shared their thoughts and experiences with us. Thank you. I'll be happy to answer any questions during the question and answer period.